The day I received my husband's gastric cancer diagnosis, he confessed to having another woman. He said, "Lila has been by my side for years, enduring hardships with me and helping me start the business. Now she's pregnant, and I must give her a proper status. We'll divorce. The company goes to me, and all other assets will be yours." Looking at the man's face full of suppressed emotion, my heart ached, but I nodded decisively. "Fine, let's get divorced. Since he's on his deathbed, I should at least grant his final wish." Nathan had been suffering from frequent stomach pains and occasional dry heaves lately. Worried about his health, I insisted on taking him to the hospital for a full checkup. Right after the gastroscopy, Nathan received a phone call. He told me there was an emergency at work and he needed to return to the office immediately. The test results were still printing from the machine when Nathan disappeared without a trace. I took the medical report to the doctor. As he reviewed the various test indicators, his brow gradually furrowed with concern. He said gravely, "The situation isn't good. His blood test tumor markers are over 1,000 times higher than the standard value. The endoscopy shows abnormal thickening of the stomach wall, along with irregular masses." I interrupted the doctor anxiously. "Doctor, please be straightforward, is my husband's stomach condition quite serious?" The doctor nodded. "Currently, it's confirmed to be stomach cancer. But to determine exactly which stage it's progressed to, we'll need further tissue biopsies. Please have your husband admitted to the hospital for treatment and examination as soon as possible." I barely registered anything the doctor said afterward. All I could hear was a deafening buzz in my head. I staggered out of the hospital, my mind in turmoil, unsure how to tell Nathan about his condition. Back home, I stared at the medical report with swollen eyes from crying. I couldn't imagine how I'd survive after losing him. As Nathan's usual return time approached, I suppressed my grief and went to the kitchen to prepare dinner for him. Over the years, Nathan had frequently entertained clients with alcohol while negotiating business deals. The prolonged drinking had given him chronic stomach problems. To nourish his stomach, I made different types of stomach-nourishing porridge every day. His diet was always light and mild. Fearing that outside food might be too greasy, I cooked his lunches daily and drove to his company just to deliver them. Yet despite all this meticulous care, we still couldn't escape fate's cruel twist. The thought of my handsome husband facing chemotherapy and radiation treatments made tears flood my eyes once more. When Nathan returned, the sky had already turned completely dark. Having cried for too long, my mind was somewhat muddled, and I lay weakly sprawled across the dining table. Seeing me, Nathan couldn't help but frown. "If you're tired, go rest in the room. What's the point of lying on the dining table like this?" I forced myself to sit up, desperately trying to organize my thoughts. I was struggling to find a gentle way to tell him about his illness. When I remained silent for a long time, Nathan impatiently loosened his tie and said, "I've already eaten outside. Have your meal alone. I'll go take a shower first." With that, he went straight upstairs. By the time I took the test results and followed him, Nathan had already finished showering and was in the study. I knocked on the study door. "Honey, are you still working?" Nathan's indifferent voice came from inside. "Yeah, busy." I stood there for another 2 minutes before speaking again. "There's something I want to talk to you about. Can I come in?" There was silence for a long moment before he replied, "I have a video conference coming up soon. Let's talk about this later." I sighed quietly. Ever since the company went public, Nathan had become increasingly busy with work. Over the past 6 months, he was either working overtime or traveling on business more frequently. He looked thoroughly exhausted. Just as I was about to head back to the room, the notification tone of a phone message rang out downstairs. It chimed 3 or 5 times in succession. I thought Nathan must have left his phone downstairs. Thinking he might need his phone for the upcoming video conference, I quickly walked downstairs to fetch it for him. But the sound didn't come from his phone, it was Nathan's tablet. He must have logged into the same account, so the messages were synced. Though the tablet's screen was locked, messages kept popping up one after another. "I'm telling you, "Don't you dare share a bed with that old woman, or don't expect to touch me again. You promised to ask her for a divorce today, you can't lie to me. If you don't divorce her soon, I'll go to the hospital tomorrow and abort the baby." I recognized the sender. It was Lila, Nathan's assistant. I stood frozen in place, clutching the tablet as if struck by lightning. For a moment, I couldn't tell whether this was reality or a hallucination. Nathan and I were college classmates. 4 years of dating, 10 years of marriage. We'd been together for a full 14 years. To support his entrepreneurial journey, I resigned from my stable government job. When the company faced financial difficulties, I handed over my dowry and all my savings to him without hesitation. Countless nights were spent perfecting proposals to satisfy clients, working tirelessly without sleep. Round after round of negotiations, we fought relentlessly to secure the best terms in every partnership. Friends often remarked how tough our journey had been these years. Fortunately, all hardships eventually paid off. The company gradually got on track. We hired highly educated and capable talents, and the workload in my hands was slowly distributed. My parents-in-law urged us to have children. They said that since Nathan and I had been married for years without a son or daughter, they were constantly gossiped about by others. So I put aside my work and began focusing on preparing for pregnancy. Around a year ago, Nathan suddenly became very busy with his job. He started traveling frequently. Every time he came home, he always seemed listless. In bed, he would either browse the news on his phone or immediately fall asleep. I reminded him that we were trying to conceive. But without intimacy, even if I had the greatest capabilities, I couldn't possibly have a child alone. Yet Nathan would always wave his hand wearily, "I'm exhausted. We've gone this many years without a child, what difference does one more day make? Let's just sleep." I thought he was just overworked. Never once did I imagine he'd found another woman behind my back. I clutched Nathan's medical report tightly in my hand. 2 devastating blows in a single day. How bitterly ironic life could be. I wanted to slap the diagnosis report across Nathan's face and tell him this was his punishment for cheating. But in the end, I held back. When I walked upstairs again, the door to Nathan's study was open. Seeing me come up from below, he froze for a moment before asking, "It's so late, why aren't you asleep yet?" I didn't even look at him, replying coldly, "What business is it of yours whether I sleep or not?" Nathan's face darkened instantly. But suppressing his anger, he asked in a low voice, "What did you want to tell me earlier?" My voice was icy. "It's nothing, just trivial matters. I've already forgotten." Nathan stared at me quietly for a good dozen seconds before finally speaking. Perfect timing, "I have something to say." I twitched the corner of my mouth into a mocking smile. Nathan took a deep breath and spoke word by word, "Evelyn, let's get divorced." Even though I had long known the outcome, hearing those words still wrenched my heart into a painful knot. The warm yellow light fell across Nathan's handsome face. There was only certainty in his expression, not a trace of guilt. I desperately suppressed the tremor in my voice and asked, "Why?" "I want to know the reason." When he spoke of the woman he loved, his gaze grew tender and lingering. He said, "Actually, Lila and I have been together for 7 years. She's the one who truly resonates with my soul. Every moment with her is filled with romance and surprises. She understands everything I leave unsaid and deciphers the meaning behind every glance of mine. But with you? The topics you bring up are always orders and business. To you, I'm just a money-making robot." Unlike when he mentioned Lila, his eyes brimmed with disgust as he spoke of me. My nails dug into my palms until they ached. He said, "During the toughest years, if it weren't for Lila by my side, I wouldn't have achieved what I have today. I might have gone mad under your pressure long ago." Nathan's words cut me deeply. Don't I yearn for romantic moments and journeys to mountains and lakes? Don't I long to pursue poetry and distant horizons? But those bank loans need repaying. The company's rent and property fees must be paid. Employees' salaries need disbursing, and their social insurance contributions require payment. I can't afford to capriciously halt my steps under such immense financial pressure. Having chosen entrepreneurship means inevitably enduring more hardships, bearing greater stress, and shouldering heavier responsibilities than when employed. Words cannot describe my heartbreak and disappointment. I let out a scornful laugh. So your so-called soulmate turns out to be an affair. Your souls truly do match then, I could never compare to you two. Nathan's face flushed crimson instantly. Yet his gaze gradually turned ice-cold. No matter what, I'm determined to divorce you. Lila is pregnant, the child is mine. Tears betrayed me and welled up uncontrollably. The memory of Nathan pursuing me years ago remained vivid before my eyes. Now he was telling me another woman carried his child and he wanted a divorce. I raised my hand and slapped him across the face with all my strength. Nathan, you're a beast. The biggest regret of my life was marrying you. Nathan's face was knocked sideways by my slap. He froze momentarily, then remained silent without another word. Nathan and I met on our college campus. He was the one who pursued me. Too nervous to confess, he drank a can of beer that day. His face flushed crimson, his ears burning red. He blocked my path to the library, stammering through his words, "Evelyn, I like you, would you be my girlfriend?" I looked at the handsome boy who stood half a head taller than me and unconsciously blushed. But I didn't agree. Who would accept a confession from someone who was drunk? Later, Nathan appeared at our dormitory entrance every day. He bought breakfast for me and my roommates, and saved seats for me at the library. My roommates all urged me to hold on to Nathan tightly, saying I'd surely regret it if I missed out on such a great guy. During our sophomore year, Nathan and I became a couple. He showered me with abundant love and a sense of security, once looking at me with sincere eyes as he promised, "Evelyn, in this lifetime, I'll only be good to you." How ridiculous. A man 3 parts drunk puts on an act to make you cry. From start to finish, the only one drowning in that delusion, unwilling to wake up, was me. Nathan's eyes finally showed a trace of guilt. But it wasn't directed at me. He pursed his dry lips and said, "Lila has been by my side since she graduated from college, accompanying me through the toughest days to where we are today. Now that she's carrying my child, I must give her the recognition she deserves." With tears streaming down my face, I retorted angrily, "Haven't I been with you since graduating from college? Didn't I stand by you through the hardest times until now?" Nathan said with an indifferent expression, "Yes, so I'll compensate you when we divorce." Compensate me? I laughed until tears streamed down. I married him right after graduating at 23. To save money during our startup, we squeezed into a 450 yuan a month basement together. In that damp, cramped basement, I learned to catch cockroaches barehanded and trap mice with glue boards. To save money for loan repayments, we only bought the cheapest leafy vegetables right before the market closed. Even eating instant braised beef noodles counted as improving our meals. During our toughest times, we survived 3 days on just $10. Every meal consisted of bread. It wasn't until 2 years later, when the company gradually got on track, that life became slightly easier. The villa we're living in now was purchased 2 years ago. From taking possession, to renovation, and then airing it out until it was suitable for occupancy, we've lived here for less than 6 months. Nathan adopted a negotiating tone, "Evelyn, let's part with dignity. Lila helped me build the company, so I won't give it to you. But all other assets will be yours. These assets in exchange for 10 years of your life, you're not losing out. After all, a decade's salary from your job probably couldn't even buy the garden of this villa." A raging fire seemed to burn within my chest. I raised my hand again and struck him across the face with a resounding slap. This slap carried even more force. Nathan staggered from the blow, then bent over, gagging. I stood beside him, watching coldly as the veins in his neck bulged from the strain. At that moment, Nathan's phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID and wiped the corner of his mouth with the back of his hand. "Lila, what's wrong?" His voice dripped with affection and tenderness. He deliberately answered Lila's call right in front of me. Nathan glanced at me and said into the phone, "Don't worry. since I promised to give you an answer, I won't go back on my word. Whether Evelyn agrees or not, this divorce is happening. Got it. Tomorrow is the day for the baby's fetal heart monitoring. I won't forget. I'll pick you up then. He shamelessly flirted with Lila right in front of me. At that moment, his vile face made only one thought cross my mind: getting cancer is your karma. I turned and went downstairs. A few minutes later, those medical reports turned to ashes in the backyard of the villa. From now on, whether this bastard lives or dies is none of my business. I never expected Lila to dare to arrange a meeting with me. She probably wanted to flaunt her victory. As the original wife, I naturally couldn't show any fear. I contacted my friend Ava, a popular online relationship blogger with nearly 2 million followers on video platforms. I asked her to secretly film my meeting with Lila. It might come in handy someday. The meeting was set at a cafe. When I arrived, Lila was already seated. She spotted me entering the cafe, stood up, and held her stomach. "Evelyn, over here." With such enthusiasm, anyone who didn't know better would have thought we were close friends. Ava deliberately entered the shop a few minutes late and took a seat diagonally behind us. Lila's belly was quite prominent, looking about 5 or 6 months along. She folded her hands on the table and put on a sweet smile. "Evelyn, I ordered you a mocha, it's what you always like to drink." I placed my bag beside me and stared at her with an icy expression. I couldn't figure out what game she was playing. She picked up the glass of plain water in front of her and took a gentle sip. "Evelyn, don't be so hostile toward me. The blame lies with you. After so many years of marriage to Nathan, you never thought to have a child to tie him down. If you had a son or daughter now, would he be so eager to divorce you?" I had no desire to listen to her nonsense. But remembering my friend was still recording the video, I let out a bitter laugh. "You two have been sneaking around behind my back for 7 years. I consider myself lucky not to have a child." Lila smirked triumphantly. "Evelyn, I owe you my career breakthrough, and truthfully, I never intended to compete with you. That's why I always urged Nathan to be patient with you. If I'd wanted to fight for him, do you really think your marriage would have lasted this long?" Her face was full of mockery and disdain. "But now I'm carrying Nathan's child. I can live without a title, but my child deserves better. This is my duty as a mother." She spoke with righteous indignation. But I found her logic utterly laughable. I sneered, "If you were truly a responsible mother, you shouldn't have become someone's mistress in the first place, should you?" Lila choked on her words, rendered speechless. Whether from shame or anger, her tone turned vicious. "You know what? Nathan has long grown tired of you. He says you're bland and uninteresting, just like the meals you cook. Being with you means living a dull life where everything is predictable from the start. Nathan can't live without spicy food, yet you insist on following some health regimen, cooking dishes with little salt and no oil. He could barely swallow them. Did you really think all those meals you sent to his office were eaten by him? Haha, he had me throw them all away. He much prefers the lunches I prepare for him. He clearly wanted bananas, but you kept giving him apples instead. No matter how much you gave, you were only moved yourself." I stirred my coffee gently, not lifting my head as I asked, "So, all these years, you've been making spicy dishes tailored to Nathan's taste?" Lila raised her chin slightly, brimming with pride. "Of course. Unlike you, I don't impose my own preferences on others. I finally understand why Nathan's stomach condition developed into cancer. Several years ago, when Nathan had stomach bleeding after drinking, I dragged him to get a gastroscopy. The doctor told me back then that he had mild atrophic gastritis and needed to strictly watch his diet. So I always prepared nutritious meals for him according to the standards of being easy to digest, highly nutritious, and avoiding spicy and cold foods. I never expected that all of it ended up in the trash. At this moment, I can't even tell whether Lila is a friend or foe. Is this why you called me here today?" I watched the woman across from me with composed ease. Lila leaned back lightly against the sofa, her hands smoothing over her abdomen in slow, deliberate strokes. Suddenly she asked, Evelyn, have you always thought you were extraordinary? That you've got it all figured out? The heroine of your own life story? I frowned, unsure where this line of questioning came from. Utterly baffling. Lila seemed lost in memories. After graduating from junior college, I stayed in this city and applied for many jobs, but companies either looked down on my low education level or complained about my lack of work experience. I interviewed with dozens of companies, and you were the only one who didn't mind my lack of experience and kept me on. As she spoke, she leaned back slightly, supporting herself with her hands. Perhaps the pregnancy was too far along, sitting on the low sofa had become difficult for her. But do you remember how you treated me during those years? Her voice trembled with emotion. When I made a tiny mistake on a report, you screamed at me for ages. When I accidentally booked your flight an hour off, you called me stupid, in front of everyone, and berated me for nearly 20 minutes. But I came here to work. You pay me, but I've given my labor in return. I'm not your slave, Evelyn. And I'm certainly not your dog. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, as though the humiliation she'd endured hadn't faded even slightly with time. She went on, after that, I worked like mad. I was careful with everything, bending over backward to please you, just so you'd look at me like I was human. But you're from the countryside too, what gives you the right to look down on me? What makes you deserve to marry someone as exceptional as Nathan? I can't accept this. I nearly spat out my coffee. Her logic left me speechless. Lila, you're out of your mind. Go see a doctor. You say it's just a minor mistake in some insignificant report, but do you realize that report goes to regulatory authorities? Your tiny error could cost the company massive fines. You delayed my flight by just 1 hour, but because of that hour, I missed my connecting flight and ruined my entire itinerary. Don't you deserve to be called out for this? I was considerate since you're new here, criticized you but also gave you chances to improve. Never thought you'd hold a grudge. Honestly, you and Nathan really are a perfect match. Continuing this conversation felt pointless. Facing such an ungrateful person would only waste my time. I smiled calmly, stood up, and said to her, all you want is to be with Nathan, right? I'll step aside for you. May the two of you stay in love till death do you part. Lila's lips twitched before she lifted her head to meet my gaze, declaring with absolute certainty, of course we will, till death. From now on, I'll be the wife of the listed company's CEO. As for you? Just a divorced second-hand woman. Although I really want to slap her right now, she's heavily pregnant, and I don't want to bring unnecessary trouble upon myself in a moment of impulse. I agreed to Nathan's divorce terms. To avoid waiting through the 1-month cooling-off period, and probably fearing I might suddenly change my mind, he had his lawyer file for divorce directly in court. After I signed the divorce agreement, Nathan moved out of the villa. When my in-laws learned about our impending divorce, they rushed over from their hometown. Both Nathan and I come from rural backgrounds. But my family's financial situation was much better than Nathan's. My father leased 2 mountains, one for cultivating ornamental trees and another for fruit trees. The ornamental trees were all high-value varieties. When I got married, my father slipped me a card as part of my dowry, containing $2 million. This also became the seed money for Nathan's startup. My in-laws are decent people, and because of this, the elderly couple has always doted on me. Apart from their persistent pressure about having children, which gave me a headache, there's absolutely nothing to fault them for. My mother-in-law held my hand, continuously wiping her tears. She told me not to worry, assuring me that she would make that scoundrel come and apologize to me. But she made dozens of calls. Her son didn't answer a single one, and in the end, he simply blocked her. Fuming with rage, her chest heaved as she pounded it and wailed, "How did our family end up with such a scoundrel? He's only been successful for a few days, and now he's abandoned both his own mother and his wife." Her father-in-law sighed helplessly on the balcony, powerless to change anything. Before leaving, her mother-in-law repeatedly assured her that they would only ever acknowledge her as their daughter-in-law, no one else would ever set foot in their home. I forced a bitter smile but said nothing more. The child in Lila's womb was their own grandchild. Nathan was their own son. No matter how angry or resentful they were at this moment, blood is thicker than water, they would always remain family in the end. Nathan moved in with Lila. In Lila's daily posts, she flaunted all the gourmet dishes she prepared for Nathan. In the corner of those photos, Nathan's bony, prominent hands would always appear, along with his broad back. Looking at those pungent, mouth-watering dishes, I suddenly burst into laughter. Eat up. Just keep indulging for a while longer, let's see how many more days he can keep bouncing around. In just 2 weeks, I received the divorce decree. The assets under Nathan's name were gradually transferred to me. With the money I got from the divorce, I registered a company, with a business scope largely overlapping with Nathan's. Men may betray me, but career and money won't. Site selection, renovation, employee recruitment, training, and marketing, these consumed most of my time. By the time the studio was up and running smoothly, half a year had already passed. I heard Lila had given birth, and they were preparing for their wedding with Nathan recently. I sneered inwardly. I hoped they'd like the wedding gift I sent over. Lila rushed into my office just as I had finished seeing off a client who came to discuss a partnership. The moment she saw me, she charged at me like a madwoman. "Evelyn, you bitch. How dare you go to my hometown and spread rumors? I'm going to tear you apart." I scoffed. "Rumors? If you dared to do it, why fear others talking about it? Just answer me one question, did you personally say all those things written on the flyers?" After learning Lila was going to marry Nathan, I made a special trip to her hometown. I handed out the beautifully designed flyers I had prepared with a design company to every villager in their community. The content was about what she confessed to me at the cafe, how she betrayed trust, how she became involved with a married man, and how she got pregnant out of wedlock to pressure the legal wife. The designer deliberately printed the text in large font, fearing that elderly villagers might not see it clearly. Originally, Lila's family had been boasting in the village about how remarkable their daughter was, having landed a young and accomplished CEO of a listed company. Lila's parents had been flaunting it everywhere, and many had long been displeased. Now that everyone knew Lila had been someone's mistress, the villagers looked at her parents with contempt. Although Nathan quickly bought them a house in the city, having lived in the countryside for most of their lives, all their social connections were still with relatives and friends back home. No matter how they hid, they couldn't escape the rumors and gossip. I didn't want to see Lila make a scene at my office, so I had 2 female colleagues escort her out. After the glass door was locked, she banged on it and yelled, "Evelyn, just you wait. I'm going to find a lawyer to sue you. You just wait for the court summons." I sneered with disdain, completely unfazed, "Then I'll be waiting for your good news. You'd better keep your word. When the judge rules that I make a public apology, I'll release a statement across all platforms, offering my sincere apologies to you 2 shameless scumbags." I emphasized the words "shameless scumbags" with particular venom. Lila's face turned pale, then flushed with anger. I waved at her dismissively and turned away gracefully, heading back to my office. Of course, I wasn't going to let that disgusting scumbag off the hook while only dealing with Lila. I just needed to wait for the perfect moment. And soon enough, that opportunity arrived. Nathan's company has spent 3 years developing a product that is about to hit the market. Over these 3 years, he has invested vast amounts of capital and manpower into this new product, securing countless investments. To put it bluntly, this product represents the make-or-break battle for Nathan's company. Failure could lead to a broken capital chain at best, and at worst, the risk of bankruptcy. Nathan's company never had substantial capital to begin with. I had advised him to travel light and avoid going public, first to escape the pressure of financial disclosure, and second to minimize the risks associated with fundraising costs. Once a company goes public, even as the CEO, you no longer hold absolute decision-making power. But he wouldn't listen, insisting on having his way. Nathan Corporation's new product launch date was set for March 18th. On March 17th, I anonymously reported Nathan Corporation for tax evasion first. Then I reported Nathan Corporation for false advertising and engaging in unfair business competition. Finally, I reported that Nathan Corporation failed to legally provide social insurance for all employees. I even wrote to the fire department, reporting that Nathan Corporation had incomplete fire safety equipment. Nathan had just finished the new product press conference in the morning. In the afternoon, I had Ava help release the video of my meeting with Lila. The video title reads, "A company CEO known for his loving husband persona, married for 10 years yet secretly cheating for 7. In the video, Lila's face was blurred by her friend. Her voice was also altered. But the name Nathan that she repeatedly mentioned came through crystal clear. Ava was already an emotional blogger with millions of followers, so the video naturally gained significant traction when posted. Besides boosting this video's reach, I also contacted several marketing accounts to re-edit and repost the clip. The top trending search that day was Nathan's company launching a new product. The second to sixth trending spots were all about Nathan's marital affair. Nathan and his company became overnight sensations, for all the wrong reasons. Within just 3 trading days, Nathan's company stock plummeted by 37%, its market value halved. The newly launched product even faced boycotts at one point. But this was merely the appetizer. Nathan was running around like a headless chicken. On one hand, he spent fortunes suppressing negative press about himself. On the other, he was busy dealing with outcries from company shareholders. I was in a great mood and invited some friends out for dinner. The server led us to a small private room on the second floor. To my surprise, Nathan and Lila were seated in the adjacent room. Their conversation came through loud and clear. Nathan said, "I'm already stressed enough as it is, and now you're dragging me out to eat with you? Can't you just meet up with your own friends?" Lila cooed, "Oh come on, I gave you a son and worked so hard breastfeeding him. I haven't had any strong flavored food for over a year. Now that the baby's on formula, can't I just have a little change of taste?" Nathan said irritably, "If you hadn't taken matters into your own hands and acted foolishly with that woman, would I have been publicly scolded by those shareholders?" Lila said tearfully, "I've been oppressed by her for so long, living like a sewer rat as your mistress for years. I just wanted to vent my anger. Who knew she'd be so vicious and cunning, even hiring someone to film the whole thing? Husband, I know I was wrong, it'll never happen again." Nathan heaved a heavy sigh but ultimately said nothing more. After a short while, Nathan spoke up again, "Let's order something lighter. My stomach's been burning uncomfortably lately." Lila didn't seem to care at all. "I came here specifically for these dishes. Didn't you used to like this restaurant's flavors too?" Nathan fell silent. Halfway through the meal, violent coughing erupted from the neighboring private room. The coughing grew increasingly louder, soon followed by retching sounds. Eager to see what was happening, I rushed out of our room. Lifting the curtain next door, I saw Nathan leaning against the table, vomiting large amounts of blood. Lila shook Nathan in terror, crying, honey, what's wrong? Don't scare me like this." The restaurant staff immediately called for an ambulance. A crowd gathered at the private dining room's entrance, only dispersing slowly when the paramedics arrived. Nathan was hospitalized. After examinations, he was diagnosed with terminal-stage gastric cancer. The cancer cells had spread throughout his body, with dozens of metastatic brain tumors discovered. I posted the video I took at the restaurant, showing Nathan vomiting blood as the ambulance carried him away, online. It caused an uproar. Nathan was already deeply embroiled in romantic scandals. After the new product launch, he encountered significant resistance, and now news broke of him vomiting blood and being hospitalized. This sparked endless panic among investors, who began dumping their shares en masse. The stock price of Nathan's company plummeted like a free-falling object. The evaporation of market value triggered a chain reaction. Banks urgently recalled loan limits and refused to provide new financial support. Business partners terminated cooperation agreements one after another. And then, the straw that broke the camel's back arrived. Online reports surfaced about Nathan's company being investigated for tax evasion, summoned for improper business competition, fined by fire safety authorities, and more. I knew Nathan's company was about to collapse. Lila was dumbfounded. She had thought that marrying Nathan would bring her endless wealth and luxury. Yet barely half a year later, not only was Nathan critically ill, but he was also burdened with massive debts. Due to the persistently dismal sales of the new product, Nathan's cash flow had collapsed. Lying on a hospital bed undergoing chemotherapy, he could no longer rush around seeking new investments. Unable to let go of his company, he entrusted its management to Lila. Yet within just 2 weeks of taking over, she had offended a major shareholder and driven away a key employee. When Nathan learned of this, his condition worsened from anxiety. Unable to repay the loans, Nathan's properties, cars, and other assets were successively seized by the court, and both his company and personal bank accounts were frozen. The company's operations had completely ground to a halt. But employee salaries still needed to be paid. In the end, bankruptcy liquidation became inevitable. Just as Nathan was clinging to life, Lila proposed a divorce. She didn't want child custody, it would go to Nathan. After 2 days of consideration, Nathan agreed. After obtaining the divorce certificate, he desperately called me, wanting to see me one last time. Remembering how kind his parents had been to me, I went to the hospital. The moment I saw Nathan, I was shocked beyond words. His once handsome face had become so gaunt it resembled a skull, with sunken cheeks that looked terrifyingly hollow, his complexion ashen gray. He saw me enter and struggled to rise from the bed. But after considerable effort, he failed. I stood a meter away from the hospital bed, staring coldly at him. "Why did you ask to see me?" Nathan gasped laboriously for breath. "Evelyn, I just wanted to apologize. Lying here all this time, I've come to understand many things. It's me who failed you. Reaching this point today is entirely my own doing." Turbid tears welled up from the corners of his eyes. My emotions remained completely unruffled as I continued watching him calmly. With great effort, he struggled to pull out a bank card from beneath his pillow. "This contains money I've hidden, opened under my mother's ID. There's over $2 million here, the password is your birthday." He began coughing violently again. When his breathing steadied, he said hoarsely, "My parents are getting old. After I die, could you look after them a little for me? And, could you help my parents arrange my funeral affairs?" I didn't take the bank card. Nathan's arm grew weak from holding it up, and it fell heavily back onto the bed. I replied, "I don't think I have the time. You can ask Lila to take care of your parents, your funeral arrangements too, since she's your soulmate, after all. I wouldn't want to taint your path to reincarnation." Nathan opened his mouth, but no words came out. "Nathan, how dare you secretly give money to this woman? I didn't get a single cent in the divorce, and yet you're still thinking of someone else." The hospital room door was violently kicked open, Lila's eyes bloodshot as she swung her bag at Nathan's head. Once, twice. I didn't want to watch them tear each other apart like dogs, so I quietly withdrew from the ward. When I reached the nurses' station, I warned them that patients in room 702 were fighting. Not long after, news arrived of Nathan's death. He could have lived a while longer, but after Lila's violent beating, he lingered in the ICU for several days before finally passing. As for Lila, she was taken away by police on suspicion of intentional assault. What awaited her was the full punishment of the law. Not long after Nathan was buried, I received an envelope at the office. It was sent from the oncology hospital. Opening it, I found the bank card Nathan had given me in the hospital ward. He must have asked the hospital staff to mail it to me just before he died. During the divorce, I had already received the assets I was entitled to. I wouldn't take anything more, nor did I want any lingering ties with him. I took the bank card back to Nathan's hometown and handed it to his parents. It's no longer my concern whether they use that money for retirement or to raise Nathan's son. Nathan's mother invited me to stay for dinner, but I politely declined. There was a time when I was fortunate enough to be family with them. But that connection has run its course, and we must now go our separate ways. On the way back, the gloom that had lingered for days finally lifted completely, and long-missed sunshine broke through the clouds. I rolled down the window, and a breeze carrying the fresh scent after the rain ruffled my hair. I gently pressed the accelerator, and the car sped up. I was rushing toward a brand new chapter of my life,